Oh, we're
Okay.
live. Yay. Welcome, everyone, to Talk It Through Tuesdays. We're so excited to be here. My name is Paulina, and I'm here with the amazing Dr. Lola.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Pauline. It's always so nice to be here with you.
So today's Tuesday, and we are doing this live stream here
Yep.
to help support you talk it through. So, if you are struggling, and particularly with conflicts or situations that you have at work, we want to come on here to talk it through with you and support you to really understand what's happening with your emotions, to understand what's happening with your relationships at work, with the conflicts that you may be experiencing, and to help you feel like you have the tools and you have been empowered with tools that can help support you build closer connected relationships in the workplace. So until this live stream goes viral and we've got millions of people watching, we're just going to give this space an opportunity for us to share some experiences that we may have already had with companies that have worked with us previously and just talk it through with you guys so you could see how we integrate the tools and also how we use them on a day-to-day basis to create those connected experiences and that connected culture in the workplace. And you have a great situation that you want to bring up today.
Yes, I do. I do. So
Yay!
this is very common in the workplace where two teams are working together and they actually depend on each other to complete their projects, right? Because the success of a company really depends on how well teams work together. So this is a commercial team that basically came to the web team that does web development and asked them software development and asked them if they would be if they can help them to create a new website for the company. And the software team says, yes, we would love to do that. And so, facing a tight deadline, the commercial team decided to, ask them, like, are you sure that you will be able to complete the project? Because if not, we'll go ahead and hire somebody from the outside. And the software team says, no, no, we will be able to do that. So they gave a lot of reassurance that they can do the process. And so, when the time came, the software company said they can't do it. And so the commercial team felt very, very hurt and stressed. And they had lots of different things that going on. And they were just stumped that the software team said no. And the commercial team felt really like abandoned in that way because it wasn't like, okay, can we do it something together? No, it's like, no, we can't do it.
So were you saying that they had the process? What did they say no to? The process of what?
No, they could not do the website. They could
Oh,
not they could not complete the project, the website that the commercial
oh, the
team was really.
project.
Yeah, the
Oh, okay.
project, exactly.
Mhm,
Now the website, the software team says, well, it wasn't exactly like that. What
mhm,
happened to them is that they said that they got the project and the commercial team never told them what they need to be done. So
mhm.
they were waiting and waiting, and so they said that whenever you have a specification, we need about 2 weeks to complete the project. So they said that the commercial team never communicated to us what they needed.
Mm.
And so the software team never worked on their project because they were just kind of like in the dark. They were not invited to any meetings. They were not shared any specifications. And so
Mhm,
they said, like, we didn't know what to do. So
mhm.
now they have a lot of projects. The software team has a lot of projects, And they said, okay, we will put your project on a list, but if you want it by that day, we cannot do it by that particular time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So here you are, you have a big disconnection where the commercial team says, well, we actually told your manager, but the manager never communicated to the software team. And now the manager is gone. There's no more manager.
Mm-hmm.
So now they kind of blaming each other and sharing the disappointment, and they feel very disconnected.
Yeah. So take us through how you would deal with a situation like this with your process.
Well, the important thing is for people to have a conversation. I think that's number one, because if people just shut down and don't want to talk, I think that creates a lot of distress, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
additional distress. It creates more injuries in the relationship, creates more distance. And actually, the negative cycle that we talk about in our process, it expands, right? When people don't want to talk. Like, I don't want to talk about it. There's nothing you can do. Bye bye. Well, it's really hard to do that because in a team, you still need each other. You still need each other to do the work. You need each other to complete future projects. So it's always a good idea to have conversation.
Yeah, I think I said this one time before, like someone once told me, I'm just trying not to overshare, because I feel like a lot of times when people are stuck in analyzing the things that they say in conversations and in conflicts, sometimes they feel like they overshare and then they like go back and think about everything that they said and then they feel like ashamed or embarrassed for sharing too much. And I say it's better to always be open to the conversation and to want to have a conversation than the lack of conversations or communication altogether.
Yes, yes, it's always better to do that way because even you overshare, you still get to the root of the problem, right? The oversharing
Mhm.
happens when you're not really sure what really triggered you, what the raw spots are, what emotions are. So we want to be able to have a process that actually helps you to focus on what is the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is, yeah, go ahead.
No, so I was just going to ask you, so who do you talk to first in the situation?
Well, it was interesting that both of them were at the same time the first ones, right? You don't have to really talk separately. I think with our process, what's good about this process is it creates safety for both people. Like, we do not really say somebody is a bad guy. We do not say somebody is at fault. We want to say, look, you guys are stuck in a terrible negative cycle because they were just blaming each other in their
Mm.
conversation. No, you dropped the ball. You just left us. No, you didn't tell us what we needed to do. We keep telling you we need 2 weeks and we just kept in the dark. So both of them are trying to find what we call find the bad guy. That's the
Mhm.
negative cycle, right? Each of them are trying to defend themselves by blaming the other person.
So, what would you do first? Who would you talk to first?
Well, we definitely use this reconnection form to help people to repair their connection and to help people to have a conversation. So the first thing we ask, I mean, they're both. What's interesting is they both were pursuers, right? So
Mhm.
that was very good because pursuers are always on the dance floor, and that's where the easiest cycle to shift is a pursuer. So the first thing that we say is we identify what is the trigger that really touched them.
So, really quick before you keep going, you can leave this form up here. When we say on the dance floor, I just want people to understand that when people are engaged in conversation, regardless of what they're saying or how they're communicating, if they're still able to be there, sometimes people shut down very quickly, but they're still able to still stay in the presence of the individual that they're having a conflict with. That means that you're still on the dance floor and you can actually re engage the person and help them kind of take their walls down to make it easier to communicate with them. So that's what we mean when we say we want people to still be on the dance floor, to be open and willing to have this conversation. Now, that's not always the case when people shut down and they leave the dance floor. So if they've disconnected or they don't want to talk about it, or they say, like, I don't want to talk about it anymore, I don't want to talk about this right now, those are all signs that they've left the dance floor. So if you're in a situation like the one Dr. Lila was saying, and you say, you have a situation whether you're open to communicating and staying in the conversation, the other person is closed off, it's always really good to do this kind of conversation using this form with somebody that is open to listening to your emotional experience from this conflict or dilemma. Ideally, we'd like to have this conversation, use this form with a person that we feel disconnected with. And even if you do this twice or 3 times, the same situation, you talk about it several times using this process, it will actually be easier and clarify for you how to communicate in this way to the person that you're actually experiencing the conflict with. So let's say the person does leave the dance floor and they're not actually open or interested in having this discussion or this communication. Then it's simple to just continue to just use this process, but with someone that can hear you. So in a workplace environment, you could ask a colleague that you're close and connected with, or you can ask your boss, or you can also do this kind of form with someone that's closer to you, a friend or a partner,
or a coach,
let's say, or a coach. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually feel the de-escalation of the emotions in regards to this specific topic. And then you can reframe it and speak it clearly to the person that you're in conflict with.
Yes, I actually like that a lot, because many times when we come across and when we start the conversation, we will be very like there's an urgency in our voice, right? So there's a lot of the tone of voice becomes very sharp,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes very attacking. But
Mm-hmm.
once you do the form, you actually feel a lot more relaxed, and then you come less threatening.
Yeah.
Come across as less threatening.
100%.
Yeah. So let's say the person A, we will name him Alan, and person B will name him Matthew. Okay, so Alan and Matthew are both pursuer. So we would mark pursuer right here. We would put session number, and then team for the company that they work with, and then the date and the time. And we'll put situation is that they're really disconnected from the project that they were not able to complete it on time. So what Alan got really triggered by is the decision of the software team saying, we can't do it. It's like that decision is that action is like, okay, you guys on your own, you can't do it. And that's really was really hurting him a lot. It's like, let's do it together. Let's try to figure out how we do it together. He felt so abandoned in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, so for his raw spot was definitely being excluded and rejected. And number 5, someone turns away from him. It's like, boom, somebody is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot do anything. And the surface emotions, he was completely confused, and betrayed, because he felt so reassured that they will be able to do it. He felt upset, he felt disturbed. And he said that there were so many different pressing issues that they needed to finish, and they couldn't do it because now they have to deal with the external company to finish the website. And he was just very, very stressed about it. And he also was worried, and I felt unimportant, felt dismissed, have felt helpless, hurt, panicked, intimidated, overwhelmed, inadequate, rejected, abandoned, and defeated and not valued. And he felt desperate.
So, the reason why we want to identify these things, and I know that if you've listened to our live streams before, then you would know that it's really important to clearly state the feeling words, yeah, you could have learned how to say, I feel sad, or I feel angry, or I feel frustrated, or I feel hurt. Oftentimes we stay on like the surface emotion levels when we have an issue because those are what arises. That's what we can see. But all of those surface emotions are really, they are motivated by these softer and primary emotions that we experience below. It's like we take the elevator down to the basement. That's the
Right.
foundation. That's the grounding foundation of our relationships. So once we are able to identify and express clearly these emotions, then we're actually giving, it's like a gift, you know, you are giving an opportunity to the other person that's on the receiving end of this conversation to take an inside look at how your foundation, what is actually going on with you and where you feel that. So, this is why it's important to identify these things.
Yes, and the primary emotion for him was surprise and sadness. And surprise and sadness. And it's interesting, we just did a webinar today on how to assess emotional safety on your team. And we talked about the importance of what do you do? How do you respond in the moment when you do feel these primary emotions: fear, sadness, shame, and surprise? And how you respond is actually either creates more connected teams or more disconnected teams. So for him, the image was definitely somebody just dropped him into this big, huge hole. Like he was walking down. He was walking kind of like on the side of the road, and then somebody pushed him over, and he just dropped into this big hole. That was the image. So he definitely felt surprised and very sad about the situation because he cares about Matthew. He likes to work with him, and this disconnection really showed like as if like Matthew didn't care about what's happened for him.
I think the image part is one of my favorite parts of this process. Like when you explain how you're feeling in an image as though you're drawing an image, it is like so relatable, you know? And I think we even said this, it was probably on a podcast that we did. When you can draw a picture for someone, then when you say, like, put yourself in my shoes, they're actually able to see it in a way that is like, my gosh, like, yeah, if you say, oh, I just pushed, it felt like I was just pushed into this big hole and I was just left alone in this dark hole and I couldn't get out of it. That is so relatable. And that visual experience really draws someone closer to what you're actually experiencing. So, taking your feelings and the raw spots that are triggered and being able to identify your surface, softer, and primary emotions and then turning it into an image just like becomes so accessible for you to feel understood. I really feel like sometimes when I do this process, I try to shorten the conversations because it's so new. It can be very overwhelming, talk about emotions and feelings. And so this is where I like to do those first few steps until the person gets the image. And a lot of times when I share my image of what I'm experiencing, it's so like dramatic, you know? But then that also shows the intensity of what we're feeling when we're in a conflict or a situation, you know? It can show like how much pain are we actually experiencing in the conflict relating to the image that we're expressing.
Absolutely. And that is a powerful, powerful, powerful component of understanding your internal response and experience what's happening for you. And it's also, like you said, it allows the other person to really relate to the intensity of that experience for you. So when Matthew actually heard that Alan felt like he was thrown in a big hole, in a dark, deep hole, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that it impacted you that much." And that's what we want. We want to create that impact. And so for his
Mhm.
bodily sensation, he felt also like a punch in the stomach,
Mm.
right? And that's also to us, we know that that's also represents shame, to feel. And his worst fear is that I'm alone, because the software team just dropped the ball and says we cannot do it, sorry, and just left me all alone. And worst fear about Matthew is that he just doesn't care about me, and what we will be disconnected. And that's very difficult for Alan, because he knows that he needs the software team to do other projects, and when he feels disconnected, he really can't really come to them for help. He starts to really feel anxious about it. He doesn't feel like he can trust them.
So the webinar we taught earlier, there was an image, there's this image of the two brains. I really like that picture so much, because the image shows when the brain is triggered, right? And then also the brain when it's in a state of peace, connectedness, relaxation. And what's really interesting is that triggered brain happens in so many different emotional experiences that we experience throughout the day. And this is why these kinds of conversations are so important, because over time, we will see like the increase amount of stress that starts to grow in someone's brain when they're not able to rebalance their emotional state and get connected. So I really love that image, because it's like even when you say, things that are said or done or ineffective ways of communicating are like punches to the stomach. When we feel shame, we feel it physically in the stomach. It's like we were punched in the stomach, because our body responds physically, including our brain, to those experiences, those really painful experiences. And even maybe we aren't able to recognize or communicate the little small moments, they're still impacting us. And over time, those small moments become very impactful in our life. And this is kind of the shift of a survival environment into like a thriving environment, where we can address the small moments like very much at the beginning, so we can learn how to be in sync in the communication and responding to each other's needs, and then to see how the brain shifts into like from being that stressful state in the conversations to the more relaxed and calm experience.
Exactly, right? Yeah, absolutely. I love that too. So I thought that for today we will finish with the just automatic thoughts and protective behaviors. And next week when we come back, we can actually do Matthew's side, so we can understand what was happening for him in that moment. Okay? And then we can do the recap, and we can identify their negative cycles and create a positive cycles. What do you think, Palina?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So for Alan, because he's a pursuer, what he automatic thoughts is, I have to stop you. How dare you? Right? How dare you? I have to stop you. Basically, what the automatic thought is a protest to the disconnection that is happening. So he doesn't want, in the moment when Matthew says, sorry, we cannot do it, suddenly Alan felt disconnection. And he says, no, 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 don't go away, don't turn away from me, come back, come back. So basically he said, I have to stop you, how dare you. And so what he has started to do, he started to judge, and that's protective behaviors. For pursuers, he started to demand, he started to blame and criticize and lecture Matthew, uh, because to basically show his distress of feeling abandoned and rejected.
I just want to add to that, the reason why we have these automatic thoughts and protective behaviors when we get into a conflict, or when we get triggered, is because this is our way that naturally we've learned to protect ourselves. So when we get those feelings of physical sense that we're no longer safe, the wiring that we've experienced in our childhood and from society and our environment taught us to use ineffective ways of communicating. And so having those automatic thoughts and those protective behaviors, they are useful in situations where we need to be protected in an environment that is not like conducive to what we want or how we want to live, right? Because I think what's important to address here is that if everybody is doing these ineffective things, like where are we all learning this from? Why do we have such negative responses to conflicts and situations? Why didn't we learn that we can just be vulnerable and open and share our feelings and everyone would just get along and the world would be at peace, So it's like,
isn't that interesting? Yeah, isn't that interesting?
The natural survival mechanism to physical fear, physical threat is to fight or flight or you freeze, right? Yeah. And so it translates to this emotional ineffective responsiveness that happens. But the beautiful thing is it's just like similar to training, like when you go to train martial arts or you train self-defense, you learn how to protect yourself effectively in physically unsafe environments. So this kind of process is very similar. You learn how to communicate effectively. So you're actually shifting from the automatic thoughts of running away, withdrawing, or pursuing, attacking, defending, criticizing, judging. And you're shifting into identifying what's happening with you, communicating your feelings, fears, and needs, and being able to ask for what you need to create that thriving and connected relationship. So these are all very normal. It's very, very normal. And what we want to do is we pretty much want to get to a space where we have that effect on our brain where we can stay, it's like called enlightenment, right? Like you probably heard that, or you have this like euphoria where you're like, wow, like I've found inner peace, like, from Kung Fu Panda, where I don't know if you've seen it, where he's like, I've found inner peace, like nothing no conflict or situation that you can experience triggers you. Or maybe it triggers you, but so quickly how to de-escalate and regulate your emotions, and then so quickly how to regulate and de-escalate the other person's emotions that you've found peace. You've been enlightened.
Well, I think that's the whole point of secure attachment is when we are securely connected. When we get triggered, it's like, boom, it's like touches our shoulder and leaves, right? We don't get off balance. The problem is when we don't have those secure attachments and secure connections, we get off balance. And that's what happened with Alan and Matthew.
Yeah. Well, this was great. And we're going to be back for more next Tuesday on Talk It Through Tuesday. You can find us on all the social media platforms, but we're live here on LinkedIn at 2:00 Pacific time.
Yes.
Yep, I got it right.
This was so fun. Thank you so much, Paulina. Thank you, everybody who is watching and listening.
Or if you're watching us later, we'll have this video up for you and available for you to watch. Thank you guys so much for joining.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.